Hi everyone, and welcome to your last presentation before lunch. My name is Julia Germeyer, and I'm the owner of Seventh Gear Communications, a digital marketing and content development agency here in Pittsburgh. I started Seventh Gear 4 years ago when it became clear that I needed the kind of flexibility that just didn't exist at the time. My background is in professional services marketing, higher education, and nonprofit, probably not too different from many of you in the room today. I hope you're enjoying the conference so far. I'm really disappointed to be missing it, but unfortunately my kids tested positive for COVID on Tuesday, so here I am recording my session the night before. I can't wait to hear about the event. So let's get started. This presentation, Opportunities and Strategies to Create High-Quality Content Consistently, is intended for anybody who manages or participates in their organization's content marketing process, but might struggle to move projects along and get content published. It's a situation I often found myself in when I worked in-house, and many of my clients still go through it. Together, we've learned some tricks along the way that I'm hoping can help make your jobs a little easier and maybe a little bit more interesting too. My goals for this presentation are to define quality content from Google's perspective, help you to more clearly articulate to your leadership team why content development and thought leadership are so important, understand how current trends in SEO influence the content you produce, identify opportunities for original content and address the obstacles in your way, and how to set expectations and measure progress. Quality content is more than just a well-written blog post or web page. There are several factors Google uses to determine what a quality content is and how it ranks. A good rule of thumb is to follow the EAT guidelines of expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. Telling a group of marketers that quality content is not salesy or fake is quite literally preaching to the choir, but being able to relay the definition to your leadership team or a subject matter expert, SME, can be quite helpful. And that is what we want to see when we talk about quality content. The article itself needs to be useful, relevant, reliable, accurate, and trustworthy. Quality content is citation worthy. It's well researched, organized, easy to read, and answers the reader's questions. But it's more than just the text on the page. Google also indexes for the overall website experience. That means layout, formatting, page load time, on-page elements, and the user experience. Google's Core Web Vitals, which were released in more detail in the last several months, can help you to paint a clearer picture of what you're aiming for here. Within Google Analytics and Google Search Console, they're worth it to look up in more detail because you'll probably find some areas within your site that need to be improved to increase search rankings. That obviously does also include the content itself. Generally, though, you want to aim for a page that loads faster than 4 seconds, is easier to navigate, optimized for mobile viewing, doesn't have a ton of JavaScript, and images and other embedded media are the proper dimensions. This data is basically for you to go back to your leadership team and explain clearly and concisely why your organization needs to invest more time and effort into its content development process. You can create your content strategy so that you have different pieces of content touching the entire sales funnel. So yeah, ultimately quality content can and does attract new leads or customers and converts them. Over time, and this is at least 18 months into a consistent content marketing program, you'll see an increase in your sales pipeline, cold calls and open leads, and unsolicited RFPs. This information really wasn't all that surprising, but I thought it would be interesting to include in the context of our discussion today. I've been seeing for a while now that long-form content, defined as anything more than about 1,200 words or so, is gaining traction and getting better results. That's not to say that long posts should be the only thing you're aiming for, but a mix of different lengths is important. If you're not sure how long something needs to be, go back to its purpose. The article should only be as long as its purpose and not one word longer. Some topics will naturally lend themselves to be shorter or longer content, depending. Going off that, it's also taking longer to write posts, on average about 4 hours. I'm guessing that includes research and editing, but the article that I read didn't specify. For what I do, sometimes that's accurate, but most of the time, if I don't have a learning curve about the material, I tend to average anywhere between 1.5 and 3.5 hours for posts that range between 800 and 1,500 words, give or take. If I don't know the material that well, then yeah, I'm averaging 3 or 4 hours for a 1,000-word post. So in this presentation, we're talking about consistency, not frequency. So if you know you're going to have trouble maintaining 4 to 6 blog posts per month, it's perfectly fine to aim lower. Lower that bar. I recommend, and research backs this up, if you're not sure, then set a goal of 1 to 2 posts per month. If you can do that consistently, you're winning. We also want to make our content as visual as possible. Include more than just the featured image. Try to include at least 2 or 3 other images per post. This breaks up the text for the reader and adds visual interest. Stock images are perfectly fine. Another interesting tidbit is how the most successful content is getting out there in front of audiences. It's less about your organization's social media channels and organic traffic, which are important. They're the backbone of most digital marketing strategies. But what we're talking about here, it's more about influencers, paid campaigns, SEO, and email marketing. I'm willing to bet that several of you in the room might need to tweak your content promotion strategies, since most small and mid-sized organizations tend to rely mainly on their social channels. This isn't a bad thing, it's just simply not enough. You may also be interested to know what kinds of content other bloggers are publishing and what's working for them. The backbones of most blogs are still in the how-to articles and the lists. These aren't going away, but they are the least effective form of content. Notice how the left side and the right side, they're kind of flipped in terms of what's mostly being published and what's the most effective. I'd like you to take a few seconds and make a mental note, whether you do it now or later. Go to your organization's blog homepage. Scroll through a handful of articles. How many of the most effective types of content, like interviews, gated content, roundups, those are collaborative pieces where more than one subject matter expert contributes to it. How many of those do you see versus the standard how-to and lists? My guess is that most of you would probably see a little bit of a mismatch. Another important consideration when we're talking about high-quality content is search intent. Search intent, or user intent, is the why. It's the purpose behind every search, and it can come in the form of one word, a few words, a question, or a phrase. Your job as the writer and marketer is to develop content that meets the needs of different types of search intent. Doing so can more quickly connect your content to the people who want to see it the most. You'll end up seeing lower bounce rates, higher time on the site, better search rankings, and generally just better content that connects to readers in a more meaningful way. There are 3 or possibly 4 different types of search intent, depending on which source you're looking at. The first type, navigational, is all about the brand name. It's when someone types your organization's name into the search bar and wants to visit your website. Its purpose is brand awareness. Informational is when someone has a specific question and needs an answer or more information. Its purpose is twofold: brand awareness and consideration. Transactional refers to someone who has the intent to purchase. They're going to purchase this product or service, but it's just a matter of who they pick. And at this stage, the purpose is conversion. Finally, and some sources do combine commercial with transactional. This is the last one. It's more common with big ticket purchases and refers to when someone wants to do research before committing. The purpose here is acquisition. On the bottom of the slide, I have 4 different search terms. Answers are on the next slide. Do you think you can match the search terms to the appropriate types of search intent. Right, so hopefully you got all 4 of them, maybe most of them. You can basically see, though, how different search terms line up with different stages of the sales funnel or the buyer process. This is why it's important to have content that meets needs in each of these areas. Writing with search intent could be an entire presentation all on its own, but at a high level, what I would recommend you do is to diversify your content. You'll know what you need to add after you complete a content audit. A content audit will basically examine all of your different types of content, from blogs to webinars, other media. You want to understand what you're currently focusing your efforts on and what might need to change. Look for the gaps and then plan accordingly to fill them. Go back to your editorial calendar to schedule these out and just sort of plan where you are and where you want the content to go and when you want it to be published. Finally, make sure to optimize the content and on-page experience. That includes headings, title tags, metadata on the page itself, and any images like alt text. This slide is basically to help you see what types of content you could put into each category of search intent. Notice again that how-to articles, which are over here in the informational search intent category, they're only serving one type of user intent. That's why it's important on your blog or your website to have different types of content so that you can reach the entire sales funnel. What you'll probably see here is that there can be several opportunities for you to branch out. So now that we've covered what quality content is, why it's important, the trends that are influencing content creation, and the role of search intent, we turn our attention to the second half of the presentation. And this is the part where we start to look for ideas on how you can start to fill all of this great content in your editorial calendar. Some of these are pretty common and some of them might not be as well known. Ways to source original content. With all of these options, though, there's no reason why your organization should have to rely on canned, pre-written content from an association or some other distribution channel. You want your own content in your own voice that meets the needs of your specific audience. These are the places where you're most likely to find ideas. It's not all inclusive, and I would welcome any suggestions you have for adding to it. I particularly like looking at what competitors are doing and saying. You could also subscribe to their e-newsletter and follow their social channels in addition to simply visiting their website. I also like the brainstorming sessions because so often marketing works in a vacuum, right? This is one way to insert yourself into conversations across your organization and connect other departments to the bigger picture. Also, sometimes the best inspiration is from good old-fashioned experience, either yours or the SME. Finally, consider how recycling old content could work for you. This is a growing trend. I highly encourage you to do it. In that case, you want to take content that was really well written, maybe made a good point, but it didn't get the kind of traction that you thought it deserved for one reason or another. Update it slightly. Add a new headline, maybe updated stats or an expert quote, maybe another image, and republish it. There you go. There's an easy source of new original content. So if we then talk about the content development strategy, it would look something like this. From start to finish, think of which platform and what type of content you want to produce. Go back to your content audit and competitor analysis for a baseline. Some examples include the type of content, the blog post, an ebook, a webinar, social media posts, email, infographic, or podcast. Next, set your goals. What do you want your audience to know and do after they read your content? What is it you want to have happen? For example, I might say that I want to educate this segment of my clients about this particular issue, and I want them to share the information on social media. You should be able to clearly identify your niche in this regard. If you have buyer personas, which I strongly recommend that you do. All right, sorry about that gap. The cat ran into one of the kids' toys. So we're talking about niches, right? You should be able to identify your niche. If you have buyer personas, this is where you would refer to them. From here, it's time to brainstorm. Come up with a short list of topics that you could write about that would also address the different stages of the buyer process or sales funnel and search intent. Your core concept should be at the middle with other ideas and topics branching out. Answer the Public can be a good tool to use here. You can also look into a platform called MindMap. Through this process, you should also try to uncover and specify the product or service focus for the content, narrow down the content format, and clearly define the reader's motivation. After that, it's my favorite part, take a break. Walk away, do something else, whatever it is. Come back to your strategy later after you're refreshed. You can use tools like Google's Keyword Planner, BuzzSumo to narrow down and test your ideas, include SEO in your headlines, and then just start writing. I recommend making an outline of your post before you start, especially if you or the SME aren't naturally strong writers or you just want to make sure the post stays on point. It can be really easy for SMEs in particular to diverge from where they should be writing, and having the outline can help them stay focused. These are some of the tools that you can use to source original content and generate ideas. Some of these I've used myself, others are recommended from the Digital Marketing Institute. For example, I've not used Alltop or the Portent's Content Idea Generator, but I have used BuzzSumo, Google Trends, Answer the Public. Those have all been really helpful in content creation. Do your own research. You can probably add to this and find something that works for you, but either way, you don't have to go through the sourcing original content on your own. There are definitely tools that can help you with that. These are some of the things that you can use BuzzSumo for. If this recording software would let me, I wanted to zoom in on the right-hand side of the screen so that you could more easily see the screenshot of the different types of search phrases and topics that are popular. I typed in content marketing and into their content analyzer tool. And notice how you can just see, even if you can't see well, it aggregates the total search volume and shares for different types of content according to your topic across YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, overall. You can also use BuzzSumo to locate industry influencers if that's something that your organization wants to pursue. Next up is Google Trends, which most of you are probably already familiar with. What is cool about this is that you can research keywords and search volumes across time and geographic region, which comes in handy for organizations with multiple locations. Next is Answer the Public. Really like this one. There's no way that you're really going to be able to see all of these different search terms, but basically you'll see in the middle there's the core term of content marketing, branches out into prepositions, and then questions and phrases from there. This is a fantastic tool if you need some inspiration on what to write about. You can also set alerts within Answer the Public if there's a search term or keyword that you want to track. Definitely take a minute today and give this one a try. So let's talk about what's getting in your way. This all sounds great, developing original content and different places to source it, all the different trends that are going on and influencing content creation. But speaking from experience, I know that once you get back to your office or computer, Reality tends to set in and you start asking yourself, well, how am I supposed to get this done with the workplace that I have? The bulleted list on the left reflects the top challenges that I and my clients and colleagues over the years have struggled with. On the right, the graph displays survey results of more than 1,000 bloggers, something like that. The source is linked earlier in the presentation on slide 6 if you want to check it out in more detail. No big surprise, lack of time is a really big obstacle. It's also hard if you feel like you're working by yourself in a vacuum apart from the rest of the organization. If leaders don't get it, they don't want to write, or they don't know what to write about, those are all really hard to work through. They can feel hard. Process is another tricky challenge to navigate, something that trips up a lot of organizations. On the right-hand side on the graph, you'll see that attracting visitors and getting traffic is the second most concern, only to finding the time, which is, also a very big consideration because quality content doesn't really matter if you don't have eyeballs on it. So what do you see here that resonates with you? Take a minute and talk to the person next to you. What are you going through right now that makes it hard to produce quality content regularly? So whatever the challenge or challenges, find out what they are and work on removing them, one at a time, small steps if you have to. Your goal is to simplify the process and make it easy for you and others in your organization to produce quality content regularly. Next, we'll take a closer look at 4 common obstacles, strategies, and the strategies to overcome them. Starting at the beginning, lack of time. If this one is your issue, you really only have 3 choices: delegate, outsource, or make content development a top 3 priority for someone on your team. It's as simple and as difficult as that. For my clients, they found that a combination of all 3 is what works for them. It's not a quick process, but it's one that, when repeated consistently over time, builds on itself and produces results. If one month you're publishing 6 blog posts and then you hardly have anything in the next 4 months, also guilty, consistency is where you need to focus. As I said earlier, it's okay to set the bar lower, maybe even much lower in the beginning. That's okay. 1 or 2 posts a month is still 12 to 24 posts per year. That's more than if you had a frenzied publishing schedule about a quarter of the time. I've also found that creating and maintaining an editorial calendar, preferably in a shareable format that can be edited in real time, can help to address consistency issues because you can see at a high level where things are supposed to go. Look at your internal process. This is an important one. Write down every step it takes to get from the idea stage to publishing on the blog and how long it takes. If you can't standardize and simplify it, it needs to be improved. You will probably also have to talk to different people within your organization to find out their experience as well, because chances are it's different from yours. Generating topic clusters can also help to fill in gaps in the publishing calendar. So let's say you have one general topic. Use Answer the Public to get dozens of different angles that you can use to write about the same topic in different ways. That also helps to establish thought leadership and expertise. Also, I can't stress this enough when it comes to consistent marketing. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Focus on one medium at a time. If you try to do a blog, an e-newsletter, a podcast, a video series, and 3 social media channels at once, and you're a department of 1 or 2 people, you're setting yourself up for failure or burnout, or both. Pick 1, maybe 2 at a time. Do them really well, Stick with that until you have a good rhythm going, and then branch out. It can also be hard to generate quality content. Now you have the basis for what it is and how it's defined. So if the quality of your content can be improved, you'll know if you start with your purpose. Scroll through your blog content or refer back to the content audit. You'll probably see a pattern, right? You need to be able to clearly define your blog's purpose if you want to write quality content for it. From there, add more visuals, optimize the on-page experience, vary the types of content you're producing as well as the lengths, and as always, proofread and edit before you publish. I would also recommend making evergreen content a focus of your blog. News, opinion pieces, and current trends are all important pieces of content in their own right, but it's the evergreen content that can still be relevant in 6 months to a year or more that will really help to build a quality content calendar over time. Some examples of evergreen content are lists, keep going back to those, tips and advice, common industry concepts, frequently asked questions, and guides. Last but certainly not least, none of this will make much of an impact if leadership just doesn't get it. If your boss doesn't have your back, it's going to be really hard to implement a consistent quality content development process. It's just hard to run an effective marketing anything if your boss isn't supportive and if people know it. So in my experience and with my clients, at the end of the day, content deliverables or marketing deliverables, they must be built into the subject matter expert performance evaluations. Full stop. I've seen this done either as the carrot or the stick method. Either one could work, it just depends on your organization. But the best content development strategies happen when they're tied to performance expectations. You can also show people what your competitors are saying and doing, elicit the fear of missing out or FOMO. Ask your leaders, why should they get all the attention here whenever we could do it better? We should be writing about this too. You'll probably also need to focus on just one or two individuals or groups who get it and do it well. Don't worry about the people who aren't going to participate, not worth your time or energy. Most people won't really care until they can see how it'll directly affect them. This goes for almost anything in marketing, not just content development. Remember that every win, no matter how small, is still a step in the right direction. Be prepared with data to help you with your argument. When you have one or two people on board consistently, you should be able to show the rest of your leaders concrete web data that supports your need to produce regular quality content. They'll see what's working for another group and want that success for themselves. Finally, and sort of off the record, not really, if you truly do not have a boss who will support you and get you and understands the marketing process and content development, speaking from experience, go somewhere else because there are bosses out there who do get it. Finally, these are some of the tangible ways that we can measure if the content development efforts are working, or if they're not, we still need to know. Which one of these metrics do you already track? Do you have a monthly or at least a quarterly record of your content marketing KPIs? You should. You need to if you have naysayers within your organization or if you want to prove the impact that marketing can have. At any rate, you'd have the data for your own benefit. So take a look at some of those, see which ones you might be able to add into your analytics. There are two case studies that I was hoping to include today, but because of time restraints, I'm saving those for a later day. But I recently interviewed two of my clients about their content development processes. Both of them are top 150 accounting firms located on the East Coast, and their content development programs are in different stages. One was established about 2 years ago, and the other is just getting started after a leadership change. So their perspectives are different, unique in that way. And it's really cool to find out what's working for them and what tips and tricks that they've shared along the way. If these are something that you'd be interested in, I would be happy to share them with you before they're published on my website next month. Please feel free to email me to get a copy, and you get first dibs on both of them before they're published. So with that, that's the end of our presentation today. I hope that you learned something that you can take back to your organization. I'm really, really sorry that I can't be there in person. I've been looking forward to this for weeks, but it is what it is. I would encourage you, though, to talk to your peers at lunch and start to brainstorm together how you can each take one step forward toward an improved content development program. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me there, email me, call me with any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. I would love, I'm probably sitting here working anyway, so feel free to reach out now. And that's about it. So enjoy the rest of the conference today. Thank you very, very much for your time and attention. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Back to you, Eric.